Hi, you speak English?
They all speak English.
Yeah, hi, my colleague and I are going to be in Keflavik tomorrow. We arrive about 8:45 p.m. Do you have, what time do you guys run your last tea times? Would be great. Can we book one at 10 p.m.? Okay.
It looks like we're golfing in Iceland. This next adventure began on a sunny Friday afternoon when I unceremoniously left the house around 3, heading for Philly International. I hopped the nonstop to Heathrow and then connected on British Airways to Larnaca early the next morning. It was a short connection and I barely made it thanks to having to recheck my golf clubs.
All right, we love you. See you in a couple days.
Okay, love you.
Love you. See you in a couple days, guys. Okay.
Ava headed out a few hours later from Seattle, but had a comparatively crummy itinerary which had him connecting in both London and Athens before getting into Larnaca after midnight the next day. Neither he nor I had been to Cyprus before, and we were pretty excited about the opportunity to spend a full day there. For those not familiar, Cyprus is an island in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, about 100 miles west of Lebanon. The island is divided into a Turkish side, the north, and the Greek side, which is in the south. Larnaca is located on the southeastern coast and sits about 200 miles west of Tel Aviv. As you can imagine, in June, Cyprus is very hot and humid. To simplify our travels around Cyprus, I rented a car. Hey, man. What?
They said you have to wear these massive gloves to get your breath.
Oh my God, where's your clubs?
They're behind the desk.
Oh, what desk?
The front desk.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna go do that. We fueled up our bodies for the long day ahead at the Radisson Blues breakfast buffet, which was quite the spread. I got a bunch of crap, including candy.
Candy for breakfast. Like you're a child.
The Aphrodite Hills Golf Club is located about 2 hours away by car in a city called Paphos. The drive to Paphos took us across virtually the entire island along the southern coast, past the city of Limassol, where we would later have dinner. The drive was incredibly scenic, and once I finally settled into driving from the right side of the vehicle, I was able to really enjoy it. The weather was absolutely perfect, albeit quite hot. Here we are at Aphrodite Hills Golf Resort. One of the top 20 golf courses to play before you die.
Yeah, it was number 20 on the list, all over the world.
Yeah. All right, this is awesome. This is the third tee box. It's a canyon. Even if you're not into golf, the scenery at this place was pretty surreal. There's a tee shot on the third hole which requires you carry the ball over a massive canyon from the pro tees. I had no business playing from here, but had to at least give it a try. I sent a couple Pro V1s to their final resting place, and Ava, as he does, easily cleared the gap before we made the 10-minute drive to the other side. It quickly became evident why a golf cart was mandatory on the front nine. The winding cart paths cut through the desert terrain up and down the steep grades, providing spectacular views of the landscape and the sea. This was definitely the most difficult course I've ever played, and the 100+ degree heat certainly didn't help. Unlike Ava, who's been playing golf since he was a little kid, I'm pretty new to the game. Even though I spend a lot of time searching for my ball, taking mulligans, and losing count of my strokes, I've learned to relax, forget about the scorecard, and just take in the beautiful scenery. Not every trip presents the opportunity to hit the links, but with the limited travel options here in COVID times, it sometimes works best to travel a day early and ensure we're in position and rested before departure. There are fewer direct flights now, and traveling to faraway cities takes a lot longer, with multiple connections. That said, from a business perspective, I still need to remain competitively priced, and I'm forced to eat a day to keep the cost consistent with pre-COVID levels. I've found that if I can enjoy the day that I'm not charging the customer for, it makes it all worthwhile. Golf has been key to this for me. On the way back to the hotel, we stopped in Limassol, an old coastal port city smack dab in the middle of the island's southern coast. Limassol is the second largest urban area of Cyprus and a location we were told to check out if we had time. We found parking down along the docks and noticed some restaurants overlooking the harbor, so we figured that would work. Cool little town. We're on our way back from golfing, heading back to Larnaca. We decided to stop here and grab some late lunch, early dinner, and I think we're gonna end up having to go to bed. We're gonna not really early start tomorrow, 9 a.m.
Yeah, you gotta drop off the rental car and get there.
Yeah, I didn't really sleep that great last night. Of course, I'm old and falling apart, so my back hurts, and yeah, I'll go to bed early. This is pretty here. So we've been instructed to get from Wes, one of our pilots, one of our guys, get the pork chop. Apparently, that's what you get here. All right, are you ready for this? That is a pork chop. That is a damn pork chop, and that is a pork kebab. But this literally has to be viewed from like an angle like this to fully appreciate. The thing was more than I could eat, but I did find someone to share it with. Like many cities in the region, Limassol is home to a lot of feral cats, and this little guy was very appreciative. Getting to the plane the next morning was a bit of a process. We found a small grocery store to grab some catering for the first leg, and then I dumped Ava off at the terminal while I returned the rental car. Normally we travel pretty light, even when we have golf clubs in tow, but on this particular trip we did Wes a favor and brought a few cases of his personal items out and back to the US for him. We showed up at the curb with a sizable payload.
Not exactly traveling light like we normally do, but here we are. Should be getting out of here shortly on our way to Malta.
As is normally the case, we met a representative from the ground handling company who helped us get to the airplane. Because of all the stuff we had with us, we ended up having to send it through an X-ray machine before it could be delivered airside. Everywhere we go is a different process, and getting to the plane is often chaotic. All in all, this time it took well over an hour to get to the van, which would take us to the airplane, and the journey involved walking through the bowels of the airport and standing around underneath the departure gates before our van showed up.
Hello.
Hello. Do you need these boxes with you, or you wanted to send it out to the destination?
Finally leaving. What do they call this place? The Larnaca Airport toilet. The departure toilet. Departure toilet.
We were now an hour and a half late and soaked in sweat. During the ride, which would take another 10 minutes, we started looking over the flight plans, Gendex, and weather briefings. Today we'd cover a lot of ground and end up in Keflavik, Iceland after doing a technical stop in Malta for fuel. Once we got to the jet, things went into high gear trying to get back on schedule. We had a 10 p.m. tea time in Keflavik and an early start the next morning, so we wanted to make sure we got plenty of rest, which meant a nap before golf, then several hours of sleep before heading back out to the airplane. Ava would be the flying pilot for the day, and he got started immediately with loading up the box with the route to Malta. While he was doing that, I went outside and did the walk around. This Airbus A321 was being returned to the lessor and heading for a maintenance check in the US. The plane had just been returned to service there in Cyprus after sitting for a few months. All things considered, the jet was in really nice condition, which is always a bonus in this business.
Confirm you're all connected and ready to release brakes?
Yes, we are connected.
Copy that. Brakes are released. Standby. We'll get a push clearance.
Ground jet test 132 Bird Aviation. Request push and start.
It'll be a quick taxi.
Yeah.
As we blasted off out of Larnaca on that crystal clear, cloudless morning, we climbed out on a course paralleling the exact same southern coast that we drove across the day before. Climbing out at over 400 miles an hour, we overflew Limassol within just a couple of minutes, and then Paphos a few minutes later. As we leveled off at 38,000 feet, we could clearly see the golf course. The hop over to Malta would take us 2.5 hours, and except for a Crete flyover, the flight was almost entirely over water.
Try that stretch.
It's so inflexible. It's ridiculous. Use the leverage of the electric seat to.
Goodyear to Exxon, direct.
It looks like when Fred Flintstone bands. Get ready to hear the sound of crackling bones. Stretch my lower back. The Airbus stretch.
The Airbus using the electric seat. Here we go.
Berlin Air 4677, contact us on 125,
I think I just tore a glute.
Even without the electrically assisted back-stretching system, the bus is actually a lot more ergonomic and comfortable than the narrow-body Boeings. That's one of the big reasons I actually prefer flying them. That said, as you can imagine, the lifestyle of endless long-haul travel is very hard on the body. As I've gotten older, it's become increasingly important for me to move around and stretch. Before long, we were on approach into Malta, where we'd stop and fuel for the next leg. a 5.5-hour stint up across Sicily, Corsica, France, the UK, and then across the eastern North Atlantic up to Keflavik. If you've been following us long enough, you'll already know that we don't always fly the shortest or most obvious route between city pairs. The reasons for this vary, but typically revolve around the lead time required for permits or a variety of economic factors. We technically didn't need to stop in Malta, as Iceland is within the nonstop range of Cyprus with an empty A321. The reason behind this stop was economic. The price of fuel in Malta was significantly lower than Larnaca, and the fewer number of countries overflown by pushing south over the Med for 3 hours reduced the amount of airspace usage charges by thousands of dollars. All in all, the stop saved us enough money to justify the additional hour of flying. As a general rule, long-haul eastbound travel is harder than flying west. East affects your sleep cycle more dramatically, and west just somehow works better with our internal clocks. Having a full 24-hour cycle to acclimate after flying east before a trip makes the mission easier. This was a nice setup for what we had in mind for the overnight. We had 16 hours on the ground there in Kef, and we were well rested from the night before. All things considered, this was only an 8-hour duty day, a cakewalk. We'd get 10 hours of sleep, and we'd get to play golf in the midnight sun. We've wanted to do this so many times over the years, but we've never had enough notice to get a tee time, or never enough time to get meaningful rest. With the travel apocalypse of 2021 still going, we had a pretty unique opportunity to check a box.
Yeah, he brought him down. You weren't so lucky.
Yeah, that's all good. Yours looks like a baritone sax.
I know, he thought it was a trombone.
I don't even remember the exact time we got to Kef. It was late in the afternoon, close to dinner time, I think. When you're in different time zones so frequently, as I always say, the time of day is immaterial. We sleep to offset our duty cycle regardless of the position of the sun, and the position of the sun, like 23 hours of the day in the summertime, is shining on Iceland. Well, here we are at the Hotel Keflavik, and very small, modest room, but it's cool because we're just going to get some rest, and then we're going to go play some midnight golf, which has been on the bucket list. Just warming up a little bit here. What do you think of golfing in Iceland at 10 p.m.?
It's pretty wild.
We're so like out of it, like because of the working all day, that like we don't even really know that it's 10 p.m. It may as well be morning.
Yeah, exactly.
It is freaking cold. Yesterday we were golfing in 100-degree heat.
Today it's 48 degrees.
Yeah, it's quite cold here. I got a sweatshirt on and a pullover that I bought in Cyprus.
Everything's so locked down right now here, and nobody even looked at their passport coming in.
Yeah, well, it's only locked down if you're a foreigner. It does not, like, it's technically not locked down, like, it's not locked down. Nobody's wearing masks or anything, because they're not really having a COVID issue, but, like, technically they said we weren't supposed to come, but we just did.
We're vaccinated.
We're vaccinated. We had
COVID
tests
test.
this morning. I mean, we're good, but it's a little odd. I mean,
For people not being able to come here, it was pretty loose.
it was quite loose.
Very loose.
This is gorgeous, man. 11:30?
This was a link-style course, reminiscent of ones you'd see in coastal Ireland, but with volcanic soil and rock features, and a spongy, mossy ground cover lining the edge of the fairways that I've never seen anywhere else in the world. The dim light through the overcast sky made it difficult to see the ball after taking a shot, so we both left a ton of them behind. Note to self for next time, bring orange and yellow balls. Frankly, it's hard to describe in words how surreal the experience was. It was cold, windy, and it rained on and off for the entire 3 hours, but that didn't matter to us. After the first 40 minutes, we were completely alone. Even the staff in the clubhouse went home. The only sound were the clanking of our irons as we walked, the wind, and a wide variety of the different birds that outnumbered us thousands to one. According to Google, there are 65 golf courses in Iceland. Since there are only 321,000 inhabitants, Iceland has the most golf courses per capita in the world. Prior to having golfed there, I'd have thought this was a ridiculous statistic, but after this experience, it makes perfect sense.
We did it. We did it.
Waiting for our ride.
1:45 in the morning, we played 18 holes.
Nobody's here.
At 1:45 a.m., we had 6 hours till departure. We would sleep again for a solid 5, and it was totally worth it. We set up the cockpit for the oceanic crossing over to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The flight would take about 4.5 hours today. Again, we'd be restricted to 28,000 feet because the plane wasn't equipped with satellite data link, normal for airplanes that typically operate short to medium haul routes like the A321. The North Atlantic is often covered in clouds, and it's relatively uncommon to get a clear view of Greenland. For the first hour, this was the case, and we didn't have much expectation for a scenic ride. But then, out of nowhere, the clouds disappeared. The majestic glaciers and rock formations of Greenland are always a treat to fly over when they're visible. Ava and I tried our best to capture the scene in all its glory.
got there, man?
Pizza, breakfast pizza.
It's killer. It's got bacon, peppers.
Cheese. It doesn't have red sauce, it has like a white sauce on it.
Yeah, it's freaking good, dude.
Yeah.
We were a little nervous because our normal pizza guy was not available this early in the morning, but
You know, our normal pizza guy is really good.
hold on, are they gonna have us start engines with that there? Okay, good.
The final leg of the journey from Portsmouth, New Hampshire to Goodyear, Arizona would take 5 hours. The weather was great except for some thunderstorms in the forecast in Arizona around arrival time.
Well, we're number 2 behind Allegiant here. But C5 coming in and I'm gonna get it. It's gonna be cool. That was sick.
With food in our bellies and a big thermos of hot coffee, we felt great. And after a busy few days on the road, we were looking forward to putting this one behind us. We'd spend the next 5 hours recounting stories about both golf experiences, one on a hot island and the other on a cold island, barely 24 hours apart. For the last year and a half with the pandemic, travel's been kind of a bummer because we're normally locked in a hotel with limited, if any, access to the sights and sounds of each location. As of early summer 2021, restrictions were starting to lift and opportunities to once again make the most of life on the road were starting to come back. This trip was definitely one I'll always remember. A nice flying airplane, gorgeous scenery, and well-proportioned blocks of downtime made for a work week that flew by. In the end, the trip took us 3 days, plus a day of travel and an extra day in Cyprus that served the dual purpose of acclimating us to the trip schedule and giving us some R&R in a unique place that we've never visited before. The golfing in Iceland was extremely memorable, and after the trip was complete, we came to find out that the reason things were so loose with the COVID stuff was actually we arrived on the first day of implementation of the new policy, where vaccinated crews were exempted from many restrictions. Unfortunately, though, as of late July, as I'm making this episode, it looks like we're heading back into a more restrictive fall. I sure hope that doesn't happen. By the time we got to Arizona, the thunderstorms had started to build, but were easily traversable visually and using our weather radar. It was a bumpy ride coming in, but that's just June in Arizona. We lined up for runway 21 and I set her down and taxied into the airsail ramp where the plane would immediately be placed into a heavy maintenance visit in preparation for whatever the industry has next for her. She was a good ship and will likely take to the skies again soon in another paint job. And just maybe we will be the ones who get to deliver it to the new operator, whoever and wherever they may be.